Hello students, welcome to Learner's Planet, Theory Session 1 of Metals and Non-Metals. In this session we will be discussing the properties of metals as well as non-metals, their physical property of course. Okay, so starting with the elements, it is that there are 118 chemical elements known to be present till May 2011. So students, many new elements have been discovered, but till May 2011, how many chemical elements are known? They are 118. Okay. The latest element is untitled, discovered in 2002. So, untitled is the latest element which is discovered in 2002. On the basis of their properties, all the elements are divided into two main groups. What are they, children? They are metals and non-metals. Now there is occurrence of elements in nature, how they occur. A large number of elements occur inside or around the earth, right? That is, they are present in the earth crust or in the atmosphere. Less reactive elements like platinum, gold, nitrogen, oxygen, etc. occur in free or native state, right? Free state means you can just get gold, you can dig, there are gold mines. Gold is not found with any of the other metals, right? It is found in its free state. Why? Because it is very less reactive. Okay? Nitrogen, children. Nitrogen, how it exists, or what is the formula of nitrogen? The formula of nitrogen is N2. That is, here two nitrogen atoms are bonded by triple bond, right? So this is again a less reactive element. So it is found in nature as N2. Whereas oxygen also exists as O2. That is, two oxygen atoms are bonded by double bonds. Clear, children? Likewise, your Cl2. Two chlorine atoms are bonded by single bonds. Okay? So they exist freely in nature, free, or in their native state. Okay? Now there are chemically active elements always occur in the combined state, right? That is, in the form of compounds containing that element. They exist as fluoride, carbonates, chlorides, sulfates and sulfides. Like your sodium, it is a highly reactive element. How it would be found in nature? It is found in nature in the form of sodium chloride. Right, children? Or fluorides, they are found in nature as potassium fluoride. Okay, they can be also present as in their sulfate forms, or iron is formed in its oxide form. Right? So elements in nature can occur both in free state or the native state or in the combined state. Clear? Now coming to the next property, next thing, that is metals. The characteristics of metals. Metals are lustrous. Lustrous meaning they have a shining surface. They are hard, right? They are not soft. They are heavy and sonorous. What do you mean by sonorous? They make a ringing sound when struck. That is why they are used for making doorbells. Right, children? They form positive ions. How? by losing electrons. They are also known as electropositive elements. Why? Because they are forming positive ions. So they are known as what? Electropositive elements. Like your sodium, copper, silver, aluminium. They form what type of ion? Electropositive ions. Like your sodium. It loses one electron and it forms Na+ ion. Copper. It loses 2 electrons and it forms copper 2+ ions. Silver. It also loses an electron and forms silver+ ion. Aluminium. It loses 3 electrons and it forms aluminium 3+ ions. Right? Now let's take up more characteristics of metals. That is, they are good conductors of heat and electricity. All of us know, because your electrical wires, they are made of metals like copper. They are also good conductors of heat. That is why our cooking utensils are made of copper or aluminium. They are malleable and ductile. What do you mean by malleable? That is, they can be converted into sheets. Silver and gold are the best. They have their malleability properties very high. Or they are good elements. They can be transformed into very thin sheets. As well as your aluminium. Aluminium is used for making foils. Foils for packing up medicines or food. Now there is ductility. What do you mean by ductility? That is, they can be drawn into wires. So that is why your copper can be formed in the form of wires. They are used as electric cables. The most abundant element in the earth crust is aluminium. The second most abundant element is iron. Now let's take up few characteristics of non-metals. Characteristics of non-metals. They are generally soft, light substances and non-sonorous. They can exist in the form of solid or liquid as well as gas. Clear? They form negative ions by gaining electrons. How can an element form a negative ion? Just by gaining an electron. That is why they are also known as electronegative elements. Its examples are carbon, sulfur, oxygen, bromine, iodine, selenium or boron. These are all what? Non-metals. How they will form negative ion? Like your sulfur. Here, sulfur gains up 2 electrons and it forms S2- ion. So this is forming S2-. Or your bromine, Br2. This will also gain electron and it will form what type of ion? It will form bromide ion. That is Br- ion. So these are electronegative elements. Now let's take a few more characteristics. Like they do not conduct heat and electricity. That is, they are non-conductors of heat and electricity. They are not malleable and ductile. The most abundant non-metal in earth crust is oxygen. So these are, children, the general characteristics of metals and non-metals. Among non-metals, there are few exceptions also. That is, there are elements or there are non-metals which conduct electricity. There are non-metals which have a shining surface, right, like metals. So we will be discussing it later. Now let's take up the physical properties of metals. Their physical state, that is, in what state they are existing. They are usually solid except mercury. You all must have seen mercury in thermometers, which is a liquid at room temperature. So children, rest all the metals are solids, only mercury is a liquid. Coming to the next property, that is density. Now what do you mean by density, children? Density is the ratio of mass to its volume. So what is density? Is mass by volume. Now the one which has a higher mass will have high density. That is, density tells you the amount or the mass occupied by a unit volume. So metals have high density except for sodium and potassium, which has what? Low density. That is 0.97 gram per centimeter cube and 0.86 gram per centimeter cube. Right? So these are the metals with low densities. Remember, children, you remember the exceptions, because questions are asked from the exceptions only. So metals are heavy substances. Your iron has the density of 7.8 grams per centimeter cube. Okay, so that is, in 1 centimeter cube, how much mass of iron can be present? It is 7.8 grams. Now let's take up the next physical property. It is the melting point. Melting point is what? It is the temperature at which solid melts or solid starts melting. So they usually have high melting point except mercury, cesium, gallium, tin and lead. Right, children? Your iron has the melting point of 1535 degree centigrades and copper has the melting point of 1083 degree centigrades. There are metals like gallium and cesium which have got very low melting points, like your gallium. It has the melting point of 30 degrees centigrade. Cesium, it has the melting point of 28 degrees centigrade. So their melting point is so low that both of them melt in hand. So both starts melting in hand. I should write here, their melting point is so low that both of them, both gallium and cesium, start melting in hand due to the body temperature. So here what you have to remember, children, it is the exception again, that is gallium and cesium. The question can be, name two metals which can melt in hand or which have got very low melting points. Now the next property is boiling point. What is boiling point? That is when the liquid starts boiling or changing into the gaseous state. So that is also very high. Let's move to our next property, that is hardness. They are generally hard except mercury, sodium, calcium, potassium and lead. We know that mercury is a liquid. Sodium and potassium, they are so soft that it can be easily cut with a knife. So they can be easily cut with knife. Calcium is also a soft metal. We take dietary supplement of calcium. Had it been very hard, we would not have been able to digest. Lead is also a soft metal. Now moving to the next property, that is malleability. That is malleability and ductility. The property which allows metals to be converted into thin sheets is called malleability. That is, your metals can be converted into very thin sheets. I have given you the example of aluminium. Aluminium can be converted into very thin sheets and it can be used for making aluminium foils, for packing of medicines, for packing of food material. Now another property is the property which allows metals to be drawn into thin wires is called what? Ductility. Clear? So metals can be drawn into thin wires, like your copper is used for making wire, aluminium, or your aluminium is also used for making electrical wires. Gold, this can be also drawn into very thin wires. So that is called as what? Ductility. Now let's move to the next property of metal, that is conduction of heat. These metals are good conductors of heat. Why? Because they allow heat to pass through them. Now why is it they are allowing heat to pass through them? See, metals have got free electrons, right? This is the property of metals. That is, metals have free electrons. Now if I am taking a metal rod, children, say this is your metal rod. Now if I am heating this rod from this side, what will happen? Atoms will gain energy. Atoms will get energy. In a way, their electrons have also gained energy. Right, children? So when electrons have gained energy, now these electrons transfer their energy to the electrons of other atom. So these electrons transfer energy to other atoms. So their electrons will also get energy. In a way, the electrons present in the metal, they transfer the heat energies. So what happens? Your complete metal rod would be heated. That is why it is said that they are good conductors of heat. Now silver is the best conductor of heat and lead is the poorest conductor of heat. Am I clear? Now moving to the next property of metals, that is conduction of electricity. They are good conductors of electricity. They allow electricity to pass through them. That is why they are good conductors. Okay, children? So, why they are good conductors of electricity? Again, because they have got free electrons. Metals have free electrons. Say for example, I am taking aluminium. So what is the atomic number of aluminium, children? It is 13. What would be its electronic configuration? It would be 2, 8 and 3. Now if I draw aluminium metal here, say I have got nucleus at the center or the protons at the center. So this center is having what? Protons, and here in the outermost shell there are how many electrons? 3. Now these electrons carry electric current. So these electrons, they'll transfer the current from one to the another because they are free. They can easily lose these electrons. So that is why your metal rod or this aluminium rod is a good conductor of electricity because of the presence of free electrons. Now, which is the best conductor of electricity? Silver is the best conductor of electricity. But we can't make silver wires. Why? Because it would not be economic. It would be very costly. Copper and aluminium are also good conductors of electricity. Now, can you tell me a non-metal which is a good conductor of electricity? It is an allotrope of carbon, that is graphite. Graphite is a non-metal which is a very good conductor of electricity. So that is an exception there. Okay, children? Now in this case, all the metals are very good conductors of electricity. Metals have got high density, metals are sonorous, metals are very strong, metals are hard, metals have got a shiny surface. So this is why we are using them for making bowls or for cooking purpose as well as for electricity, as a very good electric conductor for making electrical wires. Now these wires, as copper wires, it cannot be left loose because it is conducting electricity. So it is covered with what? It is covered with PVC, that is polyvinyl chloride. And this polyvinyl chloride is an insulator because it doesn't conduct electricity. So these are some of the properties of metals. In our next session, we will be discussing few more properties like lustrous nature and also their chemical properties, their reactions with oxygen, with hydrogen, with water, with halogens, with acids. Okay? So for this session, I'll conclude now.